All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's been a long-awaited return for us here at From Sparks to Skyscrapers, but it's episode 14. It's my final semester of my senior year, so that's how you know we had to have some big guests. So we have Michael Perretta here today. He's the founder and CEO of co-founder, excuse me, and CEO of Docket. And I just kind of want you to introduce yourself, Michael, and actually explain a little bit about what Docket is and does before we get really into it here.
Hey, yeah, no, thanks for having me on the show, Joe. It's great to be here. Yeah, for those of you who aren't familiar with Docket, we are it's an app that's free to consumers. To We focus on expanding consumer access to immunization records. So what we do at Docket is we partner with state governments to make it easier than ever for people to access their personal and family immunization records. The second goal of Docket is to improve immunization adherence at population scale. Today, Docket is available in Alaska, Idaho, Minnesota, New Jersey, Utah, and Wyoming, with just over 3 million active users across those 6 jurisdictions. We expect to be launching in a few more states this year. And yeah, that's a little bit about Docket.
That's awesome. So I'm super curious because we actually have like a few students here that are interested in getting into like immunization records. They've actually pitched a couple of businesses about like getting into this sort of field, but it's a hard field to get into because of all the regulations that are involved. And having to get permission to like hit with HIPAA and things like this for being able to have access to people's records. So what provoked your interest in the medical field and into immunization records? Like, was there a problem that you had to solve that it was how it like came to be, or how did you get interested in this field?
That's a great question, Joe. All I would say about healthcare in the US is that it's infinitely broken, which means there's a ton of opportunity to do stuff. So if you focus on one specific problem, doesn't matter how small it is, you can make a huge impact in a very targeted way. Uh, in terms of how I got involved in healthcare, it was sort of by accident. When I graduated college, that was right after the the Great Recession, and the internships that I was working on Wall Street throughout college weren't hiring full time. So the best opportunity I had as a college senior was to go move to Wisconsin and go work at Epic Systems, which is a very prominent electronic health records provider in the United States and abroad. I worked there for a few years, and it really, it's really like a baptism by fire kind of place. So it's really, if you're graduating college looking for a job, want to have really valuable experience fast, on par with like maybe a 2-year investment banking program. Uh, Epic is a place that would give you that kind of experience right out of the gate. Um, so after a few years there, I moved back home and got a job at a health system in New York. Uh, and that's how I got into the healthcare space. It wasn't so much that I chose healthcare. It was sort of like healthcare chose me. And within the context of healthcare, I was looking to figure out what I really want to do long term. And I really wanted to make a name for myself early on. I think I don't want to go too far into the
You
weeds of
should. You should.
the crush, get on other types of other questions that you have. But but yeah, I think that was sort of like the opening for me.
Yeah, yeah, and well, you mentioned that kind of the space called to you or it found you. But I'm curious about like your entrepreneurial drive and passion because a lot of times, I'll talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and they'll say, "Oh, I never imagined that I would be doing this. I never imagined that I would start a business." But then I talk to other people and they're like, "Yeah, I've always wanted to, but I just never knew what it was going to be." So where do you fall in that spectrum? Like, how entrepreneurial do you consider yourself, and where did those roots like kind of spring?
Yeah, great question. So I've always had the philosophy that I would be it would be a losing position for me to compete head on with my peers. So when early in my career, working at Epic or working at in roles after Epic, like North Shore Long Island Jewish or Accenture, other places early in my career, I found that I could kick my own ass and pull really long hours and do everything I could. And I never felt like it was, oh, like that there was an obvious payoff for my efforts. I thought I could do everything in my power to do a good job and be dedicated to my work, and I still wouldn't come out ahead. So in my opinion, it was always better to be different than better, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I always figured out a way to differentiate myself that in taking the path less traveled, so to speak, or to use a cliche. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I failed many times before I found any success. I tried several other ventures before Docket, and they all failed miserably. But they all taught me valuable lessons, and you just kind of have to keep at it until it clicks. But specifically what made me want to be an entrepreneur in the medical field, I just this is really silly, but I think the most valuable class I ever took in school was a Photoshop class in middle school. And it was like an elective school class in when I'm maybe 12 or 13. And I was hooked on graphic design and Photoshop as a result, and then animation. And so I always thought it was artistic and creative and on the computer, and had an eye for design, and that event over time that translated into an eye for UX UI, or I thought I would, maybe had a passion for that. Um, no one ever hired me as a product manager. I always wanted to be a product manager, but I was always a project manager. I always thought it was cooler to be to own a product. And I still think that a project manager is just like, a junior product manager.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I ended up looking like, okay, well, what do I like to do? Which was design.
Right.
And what do I know something about, which at that, when I was in my mid 20s was healthcare. So I was like, well, I know health IT and I like design. Can I combine those two things to the passion, the skill to create something that might be successful? And that's sort of how I fell into this into Docket. After I failed a number of times, um, one of my managers that I was always pitching ideas internally within the company or the role I was working in. So I wasn't trying to start a company. I was just trying to
Yeah.
create something new within the company, or the healthcare system or whatever. And I remember it was like the chief innovation officer at the health system I was working at, and he said, "You're never going to be happy or satisfied with what you do here, so you might as well just you should probably just go tinker around in your garage and see what you can come up with." And that was, I think that was the advice that set me on that path.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's crazy to hear that he said that to you while working in that company. That is, I mean, he's like, get out of here and start do your own thing. He saw it in you.
Yeah, I think what happened in that context was I was working at a health system, and I teamed up with another younger guy at the health system who was a software engineer. We created some cool prototypes, and we pitched it to the CIO of the health system, and there was a lot of excitement until they realized they had to like cough up money or
Yeah.
do something to let us proceed, and it got shut down. And that's just typical for corporate America, or just, I guess
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easier to do nothing than to do something. So I was like, well, why don't you go? I can see you got passion, you're good at this. Go do this on your own time. You'll and yeah, so that
Yeah.
was
And you did. So there you go.
so
Now
so
here we are. So you mentioned some of those hardships that you faced over the years and starting businesses that failed. And I always love to hear about failures because, as you mentioned, great opportunities for learning. So
Yeah.
talk to me about, you can talk about, businesses that failed that you tried to start that didn't actually come to fruition, or failures within Docket that you've persevered through hardships. So whatever floats your boat there.
Those are great questions. I suck at pitching to VCs, and I thought early on that you had to be really good at your VC pitch and raise a lot of money, and that was success. And a lot of my peers, I was living in Brooklyn for a while, and a lot of my peers were successful at raising millions and millions of dollars for the startups. And I don't know, I can't give you a report card on the status of them right now. Um, but I always thought that was success, and I always sucked at pitching to VCs. And after a while, I was like, to hell with them. I don't like pitching to them. I don't want to work with the VC community. I kind of started over time, maybe it's because I sucked at pitching to them, or I just talked to too many of them and I made up my mind. But at a certain point, I was like, this is stupid. So one of the things I would say the biggest hardship was getting it off the ground with no money. So I was 25. I was living in Brooklyn. I poured all of my life savings, which was hilariously small, into the startup. And I called up my freshman year college roommate, who I haven't talked to in like, I don't know, 8 years at that point. He's a software engineer. And I was like, hey, I'll put in whatever I got, which was like, I think it was like 14,000 bucks.
Yeah.
Give you, a chunk of the company. I just need you to make sure I don't screw it up. You don't have to do anything except just make sure that, hey, monitor the software developers that we hire, make sure they do a good job, and maybe we can create something. And if it successful, that's awesome. If it flops, it's okay. And then we move on. But I always thought sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing or waiting for something to happen was a losing strategy. So you always had to make a move to have a result.
Yeah.
And after 2 weeks, we lost all my money, and that was it. So we found a competition hosted by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It was called the Move Health Data Forward Challenge. It was a year-long competition, and there was some prize money at the end of it. And I said, hey, this competition sounds a lot like the thing that we're trying to build, and we were able to pivot slightly to go pursue the prize money. After a year, we won the competition and we got the prize money, and we were able to build a prototype. Thank you. That was a proud moment. I was actually a three-phase competition. The first phase was like a written thing, like a proposal. The second phase is a prototype, and the third phase is like a end-to-end working product. So every time we won a round, we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Let's double down the next time. So it was kind of fun to do that. The money the prize money was great, but the real advantage was that it got us in front of decision makers within government. So we created originally, it was like a check-in app. It was like you download this app, you input your health information, it pulls it from your wearable devices. You scan documents and stuff, and then you can complete some basic paperwork, and then you go to the doctor's office, you scan a QR code, and then you can authorize access of your health data to your physician, and thereby bypassing the check-in process that everyone hates. But it'll always be there. So that was the original concept for Docket, but what happened was the decision makers at HHS in DC said, "Hey, we like your technology, but we have a different use case for you. Would you consider doing immunization data?"
Yeah.
And in 2018, no one cared about vaccines.
Right.
So, and I remember traveling across the country and going to college, and like, wow, it's really hard to track all this stuff down. And we thought this isn't a compelling way to get users, because maybe it's not it was below the radar enough where it wasn't competitive to enter the space at the time. And it was compelling because if you're a new parent, you have to keep track of a lot of vaccines for your child, and then also give your proof of vaccinations to daycares, to schools, for sports, and then off to college, and
Right.
if you work at a hospital, you need it there too, or you're traveling abroad. So we're like, well, everyone needs vaccine records at some point, and they're really hard to get. So let's do this. And that was how we pivoted into that space. I would say that at this point, the market is saturated, and highly competitive.
COVID helped
It
with.
was almost immediately competitive during the pandemic. So it was sort of like a preparation meeting opportunity kind of thing. We were prepared for the pandemic. The pandemic for us gave a sense of urgency for others to adopt our product, and it propelled our company to meet a very urgent need. So it was a lot of challenges for us to be able to scale up that quickly. We're a small company. We still are a small company. I like to keep it that way. I don't really want to grow into a big company. I want to be small and agile. But I don't. I think I lost the whole.
No,
Oh, you're talking about hardships. The hardest thing about Docket and every company, starting company, for especially if you're bootstrapping a company, the hardest thing is that it will take 10 times longer than you think it will, and
yes.
it will be 10 times more expensive. And it took me 6 years to pay myself a dime with Docket. I would work two jobs. I'd work my day job, and I would take maybe half of my salary and put it into Docket just to keep it alive.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 2022 where I paid myself. So it took a long time to get off the ground. And I think going into that expectation it, it's really how you should look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so okay, that's I mean fascinating and like kind of holy shit, like didn't not paying yourself for 5 years. I mean I mean that's exactly that realistic expectation is I mean that might be the advice that you have, but I was gonna ask what's the advice that you have for a young entrepreneur facing hardship? Is that
Yeah, the
stick a
advice
lot?
would be to stratify your definition of success. Like
Yeah.
it's not binary. It's you have to look at it like, well, I went into it saying, okay, if this fails, I can use this as a tool to get into business school. And I actually did that. I had a scholarship at a business school, and I was able to get it through because of my work at Docket. That was before the pandemic. Then then I had to go focus on growing the business much faster than I thought I would. But if you say, hey, I can extract value from this company, the startup, that's not monetary, then I think then you'll put yourself in a winning position as a young entrepreneur. Like it could either be a path to financial success, or it could be a bridge to another opportunity like business school, or I'll learn something. You just have to, or I'll meet someone along the way who will pull me into a different role. You can't look at success as binary. That's my advice for entrepreneurs facing hardship.
That's great advice. And I think more people need to hear that. I mean, I know for a fact that a lot of people look at it, especially like coming out of college in such like a linear like manner. Like everyone thinks, oh, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get the job and everything, then I'm gonna have the kids, and then it's gonna, that's just not how like it, that's not how it works. And so I love that answer. So
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. I mean, I wish someone told me that a long time ago.
yeah, no, I mean, and you're telling me now, so it's I mean, at least you can take solace in knowing that it's helpful to me. So there you
Perfect. I'm
go.
glad to hear it, Joe.
So talking about college a little bit, you were a philosophy major when you were an
Yeah,
undergrad?
I don't think it matters what you study in college. The value of a college education is intangible, I think, and it doesn't really matter a hell of beans. I mean, of course, obviously trade school, or you're going on a pre-med track.
Yeah.
Um, but just learn how to read and write and network and talk good. I think that's important. Making lasting relationships in college, being an adult, learning how to pay off your credit card on time. Those are the skills. The subject matter is completely irrelevant in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. And I think people also get wrapped up in the wrong stuff, and they forget to enjoy it a little bit. So obviously enjoyment as well is important.
Except comms majors, they're wasting their times.
Yeah, I know. I seriously, I have no idea what I'm even paid. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh,
Thank you.
are you a comms major?
Yes,
No.
yeah.
Oh, stop it.
I'm wasting my time. It's okay. I understand.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That was I just had to be fresh.
No,
I
I
You're good.
understand. I understand.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Listen. I've heard it my entire 4 years. Comms major this, comms major that, and I have a job before any of my friends. So we don't.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. All
um,
made up.
I love it. I love it. So, okay, I have a couple more for you here, and then I'll let you go. Do, we talked. You talked a little bit about how you want to remain small and agile as a company. I also, I mean, you have to scale to a certain extent.
Right.
So I'm curious, like how you define, like where's that vision? How do you define your culture? How do you like understand, like, all right, this is where I am right now. I don't want to get too big, but where's that middle ground? How did that process work for you?
Yeah, I mean, you have to if you do nothing and you don't grow, that's what's the point, right? Someone else is going to eat your lunch, so you have to grow. What I mean by that is really more about being conservative in how you grow, and for us that means leveraging our own relationships, letting our work speak for itself, attracting new clients through word of mouth, building a reputation of delivering quality, reliable, fun products, and being a pleasure to work with. And the way I think about the product is literally everything. Every interaction you have with me, our team, or the software, or the PowerPoints, or the presentations we give, or our handshakes, or our swag, whatever, any interaction you have with Docket is the product. So focusing on the product and making it very appealing to others. I like to think that the reward for good work is more work. So we just live to fight another day. So when we do a good job, our clients will say, "Hey, you did great. You excelled at this thing that we asked you to do. Can you also do X, Y, Z?" And I think that's how we plan to keep growing the business. It's worked for us so far. We don't like investors. They can keep their money, and and we'll just like to grow organically as the work comes in. Um, yeah, it's not that I don't want a big team. It's just that I don't want to hire too many people and too fast and then be responsible for people's futures. I'd rather do it very methodically. And so after we have the work committed, we don't want to build things on spec. We do build things on spec occasionally. We were building a platform for daycares right now that no one asked us to build, but we were like, hey, this is something that we think we can do a good job on. No one's addressing this market. We could take a risk here and there, but that's uh, slow and steady, I think, is the way we want to go. There was one point in my life where I was working two jobs. Docket was taking off like a crazy amount. It was growing at like a rate of like 20,000 users a day. This is peak pandemic. And I was also on my co-op board, and I was also going to business school. And it was a dual MBA program, MS program. And there was like it was too many things.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, why am I killing myself when only one of these things is making me happy? And so I had to like dismantle everything else around me in my life and focus on Docket. And I'm glad I did. But just to answer your question, I think keeping it small. It's really just a lifestyle decision and a very conservative business strategy too. Like we like to know our clients
Yeah,
and
I
our
love it. It's great. Yeah, how big is your team? Like, how many people?
there's 3 employees. We have 1 contracted engineer. We usually have 1 or 2 contracted engineers this up to augment our software development. And there are over 3 million active users. So it's Docket itself is very small. Of course, with our partners, uh, there are staff that manage Docket for various deployments that aren't our employees. Those are government employees that falls under their purview. So there's a lot of a lot of fingerprints on Docket, but there are 3 employees to the company. One thing I will say though that's unexpected. I know this is not even your question, but
Yeah.
just one thing that's wild that no one prepared me for was when other people start putting their fingerprints on your product or your company and it takes on a different personality than you originally anticipated. That to me is crazy. Being an entrepreneur by definition is a very lonely existence, especially in the beginning when it's just you and your ideas and your ambition. No, you can't share that with anybody. So the second it goes out into ethos and people start putting their own spin on it in different ways or contributing to and it changes the whole personality and it's really beautiful. It's really cool to see that.
Yeah.
And then that's how you bond with those people because you're collaborating on and pursuing a shared goal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but we gotta wrap it up because
Wrap it up.
yeah. But
Where to find me?
what do you see two questions? What do you see as the future? 5-year goals, maybe, I don't know, whatever your goals are with the company. And then also, what is that behind you?
Oh, we are preparing for a conference.
Okay, I see.
So
I got you.
there's a giant stand-up banner. We have
It's good branding.
here. I'll show you. We can end on this. We're doing a video game theme for Docket. So
Okay.
we have like retro, we
Love
Nintendo's for the theme with Docket. We're doing tie-dye t-shirts.
That's
Um,
really
and
cool. I'd buy one of those shirts.
oh, thank you. How much? Um, we took our reference guides and our tip sheets and we made like an old school Atari user manual with
That's
all that
cool.
stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's
so
cool.
we're having fun. And I know this is stuff you can't do when you're sitting in a cubicle all day
Yeah.
at your 5 job. So, this is for me, it's the dream, is just being creative and uh finding new ways to communicate all our work.
Yeah,
And
I love it.
video game thing.
It's great. I think creativity is the goal for the future then. Is that the answer there? Because I think that
Oh, yeah. Sorry, that was your original question. What is our goal? Our goal is to keep building on our success to find new ways to leverage our technology. And we have a few different avenues we're pursuing. In the near term, it's going to be lead testing, hearing testing for children. Basically, we want to be like a one-stop shop eventually for parents where you can just download everything it is about your newborn. I really see it as an app for parents. Even though most of our users are adults, but we think that there's more interesting things that we could do for pediatric health.
that's a very, very insightful answer. I like the one-stop shop idea. I think more people need to get on that idea, but I won't
No,
spoil.
not too many people.
Yeah,
Not too
exactly.
many.
Not too many. Not too many. Not too many. We really appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks, Joe.
It's been great to talk to you. Always a pleasure. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So thank you guys all for watching this episode of From Sparks to Skyscrapers. Special semester this semester because we're supposed to do 2 a semester, and then I missed one semester, so now we're doing 3 this semester. So we have 2 more coming. So episode 15 and 16 will be coming. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Thank you again, Michael, and we'll see you next time on
Thanks, Joe.
See you guys.